Hey, everybody. Welcome to Navel Gazing, the Valley Indy podcast. My name is Eugene Driscoll of valleyindy.org. That's a nonprofit online newspaper covering Derby and Sonia and the town of Seymour, or at least trying to. My guest for this video episode is none other than Alderman Rob Hyder. Alderman Hyder, welcome to the program.
Thanks, Eugene. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
And you are an alderman in the city of Derby. I should not make the assumption, but that people know that. But that's where you. Hey, which ward do you represent? Are you the third ward?
I'm in the third ward. Yes.
Gotcha. Okay. So I thought today we would talk about Derby charter revision. Rob and a bunch of other people are on a commission, and they've been in the trenches reviewing the Derby charter pretty much through this whole pandemic, like twice a week, to try to see if there's some changes that should be made. And ultimately, Rob, the commission itself doesn't have the power to change anything, but it can make recommendations to the Board of Aldermen, right?
Correct. Yeah. The two town committees proposed a list of candidates to the mayor. The mayor moved those forward to the Board of Aldermen, who approved them. And the commission is just going to make suggestions to the Board of Aldermen. And they could either approve, reject, or send it back to us to work on some more. Should they accept it, then it moves on to the state of Connecticut and gets on the ballot for November.
And this coming November, we're talking about. So we're recording this, I think it's Monday, May 3rd. On Wednesday, you have a public hearing coming up at 6 p.m. So that would be August 5th, Wednesday, August 5th. What's
Correct.
that about?
Well, per state statute, when the charter revision begins their work, we have to have two public hearings, one at the beginning and one at the end. So we initially had our first organizational meeting of the commission on June 4th. And then the week after, we had our first public hearing in which we took input from the public. We also had input from a charge from the Board of Aldermen, as well as we accepted emails, and then we also had ideas come from the commission themselves. So once we had that first public hearing, we ended up having approximately 35 or so bullet points that we needed to review.
Oh, wow.
Put forth. So so the public hearing is per state statute. So we're going to have our final public hearing to end the process on Wednesday.
On Wednesday night. And I should tell anybody, if you're listening, or maybe you can hear it, I think my wife might have just come home because my dog is barking like crazy upstairs. Hopefully that's it. But anyway, if you hear background noise. So this will be you could actually make some recommendations after that public hearing Wednesday and then move this on to the Board of Aldermen. How do you anticipate that going?
The plan is to have our recommendations submitted to the Board of Aldermen for their next meeting, which is actually next week on the 13th. So we've already voted on 4 or 5 items that we like to put forward. So we just want to get the public's input on the work we've done so far, and then move forward. We've been working under a really tight calendar because of COVID. We kind of got put back a little bit, but we've been working hard. We've been working, as you said, 2-3 times a month. I think we met 3 times in June. We met 4 times in July. We're meeting in August, and we hope to put it forward to the Board of Aldermen by the 13th. In which case, hopefully, they accept our recommendations. Then it moves forward to the state of Connecticut and gets on the ballot for November 3rd.
And before we get into sort of a quick rundown of what some of these changes might be, or things you've talked about or recommended, I guess, because I know you guys have talked about a lot, and we'd be here for the next 7 hours if we went through the whole thing. But just, can you, off the top of your head, name everybody on this commission? So I don't mean to put you on the spot that, but yeah, maybe we should name them.
Yeah, we have a great commission. There is actually, it's pretty diverse. We have, as far as political affiliations, Oni Malerba, we have 4 Democrats, Oni Malerba, Chris LaRoque, Chuck Stanky, and Camille Kurtica. And Sam Palastro is the 1 Republican, and we also have 5 unaffiliated members, Ralph Capiello, Gina McKay, Carl McCluster, Jim Smay, and myself.
Okay, great. So that's everybody that's on the commission,
Correct.
all volunteers, we should say. I think
Absolutely.
sometimes
Yeah.
people think municipal officials on all these boards and commissions are making a big bank, but that's not the case.
No.
They're doing this as a service to the community. So let's go through some of the things that you said you voted to pass them on. So there are some things you're definitely going to pass on. Why don't we hit those first, if I'm
Sure.
describing it correctly?
Yeah, sure. So the first thing what we're going to put forth to the Board of Aldermen for consideration is full-time mayor. It's been an age-old debate in Derby whether the mayor is full-time or part-time. Everybody assumes that it's part-time. The statute, or the charter rather, doesn't specify whether it's full-time or part-time. However, based on the stipend or the salary that's given to the mayor, it's generally assumed that it's a part-time position. So we want to end that age-old question whether the mayor is full-time or part-time, and we're recommending that the mayor become a full-time position in the city of Derby.
And what's the salary right now? Do you know what the salary is right now?
It's in the $50,000 range right now. Don't quote me on that. It might be a little more, a little less.
That sounds about right, because that's what I was going to guess. It's somewhere in that range. And of course, we should point out that the commission's job, or you don't set a salary. That would be, if this happens, that would be some other.
That would be separate.
boards.
That would go to the Board of Aldermen to determine.
And the commission is on board. That was unanimous.
Correct. Yeah. All of our items that we decided to put forward to the Board of Aldermen have been unanimous. We've been very fortunate. This commission's worked very well together. So.
That's good to hear. And I guess I should just say quickly, if there's anyone listening or watching, the city charter is essentially the blueprint for how Derby government works, or any city charter is the blueprint for how that government works. That's what we're talking about here. So extending or making the mayor officially a full-time job. It's interesting. I didn't realize until the commission started its work that, it doesn't actually say either way in the charter. I thought it was officially part-time. So
Yeah. No, and that's what everybody assumes, but it's not. But we all know a mayor is essentially working 24/7. I mean, if there's a fire downtown at 2:00 in the morning, he's not going to say, "Sorry, I put in my hours already." He's going to show up, So.
And the challenge, and I live in Derby too, and the challenges we face as a community are just, they're not part-time. Definitely, I don't think anyone would argue with that in terms of trying to get things done and economic development and all that good stuff. All right, so that's that. And then what's the next one you want to touch upon, Rob?
The second item we're going to look at is changing elected officials. Instead of 2-year terms, we're looking to make it 4-year terms. And one of the main reasons we discussed in making this suggestion is for a mayor, for instance, when he takes or she takes office for the first time, he or she is working under the previous administration's budget for the first 6-7 months of their term. So currently, it's 25% of their term, at least their first term. So the mayor's not actually working under his or her own budget until July of their first year. So they essentially are working under their own budget for 1 year before they have to decide, are they going to seek re-election, or before they're campaigning already. So
although in Derby, it's not the mayor. The mayor doesn't set a budget. He's working under the the tax board's budget.
Well, the mayor submits his budget, correct, but the tax board approves or denies or alters the budget recommendations.
Although I guess I've seen it differently. I've seen it done differently with various administrations, where some mayors will. It doesn't actually say in the charter the mayor has to submit a budget, right? Isn't that it's just completely up to the tax board?
They're the ones that set the budget, correct?
Okay.
The tax board.
And so that got a full. And I guess the one important thing to point out here is, one of the purposes of Wednesday night's hearing at 6 p.m. is if people want to comment on these things on Wednesday, August 5th, this is your chance to do it.
Correct.
If you agree, don't agree, or have other suggestions, that's the time to come out and do it. Okay, and that's another one you said got unanimous consent or approval?
Correct, yeah. And within the 4-year terms, we also talked about term limits, and we ultimately decided that we're going to leave the term limits up to the voters. There's no sense in having that be part of the 4-year terms. I mean, for instance, one of my arguments was for against term limits was here's Ron Sill, Alderman Sill, who's been an elected official since 1973. and we don't want to eliminate somebody of his stature in the city, to limit him to 2 terms or 3 terms or whatever is decided upon. So if the voters don't want him in, then the voters are going to vote him out. So we're going to leave the term limits up to the voters. So that was something that we all agreed upon as well.
And 2-year to 4-year, this would impact all elected officials in the city? Like anybody who has, like the mayor would also be a 4-year term?
Correct, yeah. Currently, the only elected official in the city of Derby that sits for 4 years is the town clerk. So we're looking to move the mayor, the Board of Aldermen, the Board of Ed, the tax board, and the constables all to 4-year terms.
Okay, so we got full-time mayor would be spelled out in the charter, 4-year terms instead of 2 for elected officials, including the mayor and members of the Board of Aldermen. What's next?
One of the items that was brought up by the commission members themselves, and I can't recall which one, so I don't want to throw out a name and guess, was to change the name of the Board of Aldermen / Alderwomen to simply the Board of Alders. It's generally the same concept. It's still gender neutral. So it's just a simple change of the name of the Board of Aldermen from the Board of Aldermen / Alderwomen to simply the Board of Alders, which is done in many other cities and municipalities.
And I have a follow-up question on that. But before I ask it, I just want to share an important message about COVID-19 in the Valley. This is from the Valley Community Foundation, the United Way, and others. But COVID-19 has changed life as we know it, and the Valley needs your help now more than ever. The region's health and human service providers face unprecedented challenges in meeting the needs of those affected by the pandemic. Some organizations are even at the risk of closing their doors. You can make a difference right here in our community by joining with others in one of these 3 ways. Give directly to Valley nonprofits, participate in the Valley United Way's annual fund, or support the Valley Community COVID-19 Response and Recovery Fund. Please visit valleyfoundation.org for more information. So sorry to interrupt you there. I meant to read that at the beginning, but I forgot. That's a message okay. I think we should get out there because that fund is doing a lot of good. A reader asked the other day, well, who's being helped by this? A lot. I mean, they're helping the food banks. They bought PPE equipment for the ambulance corps and all kind of good things. Yeah. So, all right. So I know in the last go around, the last charter revision was a couple of years back. I covered that to some extent. And they had changed the name from aldermen to aldermen / alderwomen, which is, I mean, every time I write it now, it's a bit wordy. It takes up more space to write. But exactly, is it just because it's a little awkward? But I remember that last go around, people said, hey, let's call it the Alders. And there was opposition to that. I remember seeing it on Facebook and in some of the meetings, people were like, well, alders are trees. We don't want to do that. So what is the motivation, just to clean it up a little? Is that what's going on?
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of cumbersome to I mean, if you want to be politically correct and say the full name, Board of Aldermen / Alderwomen, it's just, it's much easier, much simpler to just say Board of Alders. But yeah. That's essentially behind the meaning behind it.
So the greatest hits we have, we're changing the name of the Board of Aldermen. There you go. Yeah. It's becoming the Board of Alders. I can't speak normally. The mayor becoming a full-time job, spelled out in the Derby Charter, 2-year to 4-year terms for our elected officials. And then what's number 4? I believe you said there was a 4th one, right?
There's actually 5.
Okay.
And I'll explain 5 as we get to it. But the 4th one is currently state statute, and the Derby Charter follows obviously state statutes as far as postings for bids that are within the city. So we currently have to post bids in a hard copy printed newspaper. So, and it costs approximately $600 every time we post a bid in the newspaper. So we are looking to change that and have it online only, whether it be on the valleyindy.org or if it be on the Derby website or a combination.
I'll charge you $800. I'll charge you $800. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. That was a joke.
But yeah, we're looking to make that change, and it's essentially just to clean up that section of the charter. To and again, we have to follow state statute, and currently state statute says it has to be in a printed newspaper. So once we change our charter to say that we can post it online, we're at the mercy of the state to change their statute, which we plan on doing as well. Should this recommendation pass on November 3rd, we're going to solicit the state reps, the state senators and state representatives for Derby to bring this to the floor of their respective chambers to see if we can get that statute changed. And again, it's going to save approximately $600 every time we have to post something in the newspaper.
And like I would, yeah, legal notices are a lot of money for towns. But can you even do that? I thought no city can have something on the books that supersedes an existing state statute.
No, we're not going to supersede them. We're still going to follow their statute. We're just going to change the wording to indicate that we're going to post it online in addition to the newspapers or follow state statute. And then if it passes, we are going to solicit the state representatives to change the state statute so it shows that we can just post it online.
Oh, okay. I thought you were eliminating newspapers from the charter altogether and just putting it on your website, which I thought.
No, we couldn't do that. We have to have the state change their statute in order to do that.
Gotcha, understood. And that's a money saver right there. Interesting. Okay. What's next? Number 5. This is going to get complicated, you're saying?
No, this isn't going to get complicated at all. It's sort of general cleanup. We went through the entire charter and looked at things that, like, for instance, general cleanup, meaning there's items in our charter that are superseded by state statute. So there's really no sense in having that information in our charter because we simply can't supersede the state statute. And there's also a section in our charter that says that we are going to give $1,000 or $500 to charitable organizations in our community. And we deem that inappropriate that we're going to be spending, especially in this time, economic time, sending our taxpayer dollars to charitable organizations. So we're looking to eliminate that from the charter as well.
And I know every year, I'm getting some feedback there. The city gives money to say I don't know if Derby does this, but I know like Ansonia, to the YMCA and places like that. Can that still happen? And it's just if the tax board chooses to? It
can still happen, but as of right now, it says that we will give X amount of dollars to this organization or X amount of dollars to that organization. So we're looking to change that and just deem it as appropriate by the tax board.
And then, so you're going to meet Wednesday. There's going to be a public hearing. People can comment on these 5 items. Do you anticipate adding any more to the ballot at this time? I know you're up against a really tight, although November may seem far away in terms of getting something on the ballot. It's
right. Well, we have to get it to the state 60 days prior to the election. So that's why we're kind of in the middle of a time crunch. There are a couple more items that we want to work on. So and look deeper into that we have tabled until the next cycle. Officially, once the Board of Aldermen accept our recommendations, we are officially disbanded as a charter commission. But we're going to solicit the Board of Aldermen to re-up us for another 16 months so we can look at a couple more items and potentially put them on the ballot for 2021. And those items that we specifically tabled were, one of the items was realigning the wards. And we need census data. The last census data that we have available is 2010, and we're in the middle of a census right now. So we're going to wait until the next cycle. Hopefully that census data becomes available and we can do that properly rather than using data that's a decade old. And one of the other items was reducing the size of the tax board or making a financial subcommittee of the Board of Aldermen and eliminating the tax board altogether. That doesn't seem to be very popular, but that's one of the items that was among the discussion. So we're either going to look to reduce the size of the tax board or make the tax board essentially a subcommittee of the Board of Aldermen and increase the number of aldermen on that board.
Those are interesting. And I did attend your very first meeting. I didn't get a chance to write a story about it. I thought I would cover it by doing play-by-play. I'd do it as a pod. I failed miserably. So
That's
I
all right.
never got to it. But I mean, you guys, it was like a 4-hour meeting. You guys really delved into it. And it was interesting to see Chuck Stanky sort of act as like an Obi-Wan Kenobi type guy from Star Wars, because he's been through a couple of these before.
He has,
he was sort of saying, hey, if there's any, because some of those that you just mentioned, those are not just complicated, but as you said, it could be controversial.
Yeah, and they deserve the research. And there was one other item, the succession to the chief of police in Derby. So that's another item that we want to look at. And obviously there's a collective bargaining agreement in place. So rather than rush that through, and we don't have the time to give it the due diligence that subject requires. So we tabled that until the next cycle as well.
So you could revisit those, assuming the mayor and the board of aldermen want to do the process again. Correct. So basically you kind of got ones that were not necessarily low hanging fruit, but nothing that was, because of your time constraint, nothing that would be incredibly complicated.
Exactly.
Is that
correct?
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Rob, those are my questions. Maybe there's other things. I mean, I only watched that first meeting, so I could be a complete ignoramus on this. Is there anything else you want to add about the commission's work? I know it's, I guess I'll ask, does there seem to be interest in it from the public? I think that gets harder and harder in like these modern times to get people to pay attention to something like a charter revision. I've heard stories from Derby residents talking about, charter revision from decades ago where it was like standing room only, but you really don't see that type of participation anymore, at least from my perspective. And I don't think that's a slight against the people of the city of Derby. I think everyone's busy.
Right. Well, at the first public hearing, obviously we didn't have any standing room only. We didn't have that type of crowd, but we did have 6 to 10 members of the public come and speak and give suggestions. So one of the good things, if there's anything good to come out of COVID-19, is that, we have more people attending meetings now than they normally would had we been showing up in the chambers at City Hall. So there's better attendance by the public with these Zoom meetings, which is fantastic.
Yeah, that's really good to hear. I was talking to Kurt Russell on a previous podcast. He was on the last 2 episodes I did, and he said in Seymour, even one day when they go back to the in-person meetings, he wants to carry on using Zoom to get it to people, because it is such a great way to have people participate, which is, I guess if there's any type of tiny silver lining out of all the madness of the last few months, is that you can participate more in your local government if you choose to. It's right there. It's very easy. So, all right, Alderman Hyder, you probably have a dinner to eat and a family to spend time with in between all these meetings. So I really do appreciate you coming on and talking about Derby Charter Revision with me.
Of course, no problem. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Now I just got to make sure I hit stop recording and not end the meeting, because then it'll just erase all this. All right. Take care, Rob. Thank you.
Take care, Eugene. Bye-bye.